What's going on, y'all? Jason back in the basement. This is Thanksgiving Eve, and I was in the basement after doing some cooking and preparing for tomorrow, and was thinking about what am I going to do in terms of my cameras and printers, etc. What am I going to do photography wise tomorrow to document the family events and what we're doing. So if you know, I've been on a instant film journey for the last couple of months and gone down that rabbit hole. Instant film all started with my Instax wide printer, which I've been using for a couple of years now. So I had this as my only instant producer, I would say, even though this is not instant film, it's more like a digital reproduction, but we'll call it instant for the sake of what it produces. So instant wide, I do like these prints, and I started just having it as a personal printer. So other than this, I use a Canon CP1500 over to my left, which I print my 4x6s at home, for my personal journey. But wanted to have something that I could carry around with me, and this is where the link wide came into play. Connects to my phone, and usually I transfer photos from my cameras to my phone, and then I can then print them. So have something tangible and on the ready that I could put into an album. So that's that. But at some point I was kind of like, well, I want to get into film, and I had some film SLRs. Had a Canon AL1, which I still have. I had a Minolta AF Tele Super, which is a point and shoot. No longer have that, but I still have the Canon AL1 with the 50 millimeter 1.8, the FD lens. But ultimately, I thought that 35 millimeter film, because it's the cost is high to get it developed, and then the waiting time. I'm impatient. I like to have my stuff at the ready. So when I think about printing 4x6s, I got a printer right there. I got an album sitting on my desk that I can just throw them in and put my portfolio in for my personal stuff, as well as family albums upstairs. And so I want to be completely in control of the entire input and output of what I'm doing. So that brought me to, well, what's another analog medium that I could get into? And that brought me to some instant film cameras. So I got the Lomo Instant Wide, which I absolutely love. This is my favorite one by far. The only downside to it in my eyes is that it's a big chunky brick, so you got to be ready to carry this thing. And the viewfinder is offset all the way to the right, but as a left eye dominant person, it actually doesn't hurt me too much. So I'm not upset by that. So this is pretty cool for me. And I love the output. I've taken some photos with this, and it comes out pretty decent. And I love the size of this print. So wide, Instax wide is my favorite medium. It's 3x2. It's a large print, so it looks like even if I do print this from the link wide, I get the same aspect ratio that most cameras that I shoot with have. So it's a natural output. So that's that. But I said, you know what? The Lomo Wide is a big boy. What if I tried the Mini? Initially, the Mini didn't interest me because the prints are super small. But when I really thought about it, it kind of reminds me of a photo booth print. And I'm like, well, for clients, that won't be something they're not used to. Like, I want to give them, bigger prints. That's cool. And it looks better to have something this large to give them. But a mini print wouldn't be so bad, and it's something you can get, pretty easily anywhere. So I went down and got the Automat Mini, the Lomo Automat Mini. Since I like the Lomography wide, I said, why not get a mini version? What I like about Lomography is that they're reasonably priced for what they are, but still giving you some control, which you don't get from, the Instax, the Fuji Instax cameras. So you got multiple exposure, you have control of the flash, you've got a bulb mode, you got these cool, shutter releases, remotes right here, so I can put it on a tripod, do a little bulb mode, long exposure, and that works out pretty nicely. So I like this. This is my portable camera. This is something I actually had on me at a wedding, if you saw one of my old videos. And this worked out so good to just give the bride, these little mini prints. And so I was really happy with the usage of it. So although I really still prefer the wide output, the wide film, the usage case for something like this being smaller is where the mini shines the most. And that's why, for me, they're a good A and B 1-2 punch. If I have the room in my bag and I'm really dedicated to shooting, then I will use the wide, especially personally for my family. This would be the one I would, definitely use, as well as this. This is even better to use. It's smaller. But if space is an issue and I'm also shooting digital, then this is a good companion. And so that's what I like about the Lomo Automat. All right. So I got those three. So then I said, all right, well, I have these Fuji cameras, right? And what I never looked into was the older printers, right? I have the Link Y, which is a modern Bluetooth printer, right? So this connects with my phone only. It actually is compatible with the XS10, which I'm shooting on right now. But I found that the output, the print, was super slow to respond. It doesn't work well. It really doesn't. So they really crippled it to be, for one, the only camera that can print directly to this, but also the fact that even if it doesn't do it very well. And that's the thing that hung me up on it. So I was disappointed by that. So I went down more rabbit holes and I said, well, I have these Fuji cameras that have the ability to print. So I said, let's get an older share printer. So I got the SP2, which is the mini printer, Wi-Fi printer. So this still will use an app to print from your phone, but you can also print directly from your camera. So I tried it with my X70, my XT10, my X Pro 2, and my XT2, as well as XS10. And it shoots it out with no problem. Tested it with every camera, not an issue. So you get these, beautiful quality prints with no problem, straight from your camera, and it comes out in no time. Like it talks to each other. They really nailed it with the share printer. And I'm disappointed that we don't have the same responsive printer in the wide format, because I would love that in a wide format. After the SP3, which I'm going to talk about in a second, they went to the Bluetooth models, and that's where I think everything fell apart. I think they really focused on the smartphone user and forgot all about the camera guy, the guy with the X Pro 2 who's doing a job for clients, shooting portraits or at a wedding and wants to print that great shot directly to this printer. That they forgot all about us. They thought that, okay, all the new cameras, because this doesn't have Bluetooth, right? X Pro 2, XT2 doesn't have it, XT10, X70 doesn't have it. My only Bluetooth camera is the XS10. And so what that means is I can have the XS10 automatically set up to shoot all my photos and transfer them to my phone as I'm shooting. So that's the only advantage that I could get from the Bluetooth, to now get it to my phone without having to go into the app, and then it will be ready on my phone. So what I would say about the Link Wide is that it prints from your phone with no issue. So that's the only thing. Once it gets to your phone, this Bluetooth printer with your phone is seamless. It will print, respond, no issue. The app works great. It's stable. So if you can get it to your phone, the quicker you can get it to your phone, the easier you can print it to these Bluetooth printers. So you have the new line of these, the mini and the square are now Bluetooth. So that's the thing. But I still like the old one. and I want to print it from my old cameras. But again, mini isn't my favorite, but I do like it. Now here's the catch with the mini, right? No, I'm sorry, not the catch with this. There's a catch with the next printer I'm going to talk about, and that is the SP3, which is the square. Now, I said in the past I didn't want to shoot with square because the aspect ratio is a 1:1, whereas all my cameras have a 3:2. So that means I'm going to be cutting off, images from my left and from my right. And I think that's, ideally what you don't want, because you're losing resolution, but it doesn't matter when you're printing to these, small prints. So, yeah. So anyway, the thing about this that was my reluctance to do it. Now, here's another catch I did not know. So, the older cameras, my oldest two cameras are my X70 point and shoot and my XT10 small, interchangeable camera. So when I connected the SP3 to do the direct printing, I expected to see a square, before printing, so that I can move the square left or right to pick what part of the 3:2 image that I could output. But it doesn't show up on those two cameras. So there's a disconnect with those models as they are older cameras, the X-Trans 2 sensors, that did not have that ability to show that crop on the screen. So that was the issue. And so I did want to experiment with something larger because, when you look at it, it's a nice square image. I'm going to show one of the nicer ones that I got. All right, so you got the mini and then you got the square. So it's a little bit, you get more real estate. It's not significant, but I think anything larger is going to be better, right? Obviously, the nostalgia means the most, but if it's larger, it's better. So I thought this would be just like, for a client, I could upsell it. Boom, nice. I got some prints for you right on the spot. You do some portraits and boom, you got this. But it didn't work with my smaller cameras for my own personal use. So, but what I would say is that for the XT2 and my X Pro 2, they will be the dedicated cameras to use the SP3 with, because the crop does show up on the screen, as well as the XS10, because the XS10 can print, to these share printers also. But the three of those cameras do show the square crop on the screen before you print, so you can move it with the joystick or the D-pad and say, hey, I want this portion of the image before printing. So I'm going to use this. So I say all that to say is I'm going to use this tomorrow for my family time and, print everything out. Print the ones I really like, actually, on, Square, Instax Square, and see how it goes. So I'm going to end it with this to show the comparison, because some may be interested in, these three formats. So since I happen to have all three, you can kind of see the difference and just compare. So the wide obviously is my favorite. The mini is so convenient. Now, another thing about the mini I didn't mention is that it's also 3:2. So when you look at this image on side by side, you can see that they're both 3:2. Now, this is a vertical image. So, you kind of want to shoot vertical if you can, but an output of a landscape is not something that you could shy away from either, because it will print it and not have to crop anything. Whereas if you shot a portrait orientation on this, you're going to have the border on. So it all depends on what you like. So I like these for landscape. These are okay for portrait as well, portrait orientation, obviously, but don't be afraid to use them in whichever orientation is needed. So just wanted to kind of show that. And then obviously the square is square. It's a 1:1 aspect ratio. So you will focus probably your image on the center, not quite good for landscapes, but I say for portraits and, small groups, this will work fine. So, that's all I got to say. So still on the journey. Now, what I don't have in my arsenal is I don't have a square camera. So thinking about that as an option for the future. I'm not sure if I'm going to go down that road, but stay tuned. All right. If you got any questions or you got any comments, are you interested in, Instax printers or, instant cameras? Let's talk. Peace, y'all.